Hello, it's 9 p.m. in RTD. It's time to English New Edition. For tonight headlines, we have bilateral meeting in the presence of the two leaders of Djibouti and China following the signatures of bilateral cooperation documents. For the international conclusive test of the first drillings at Lakasal. For the international scene, the American embargo on Venezuela and oil entry into the forces. Welcome to our newsroom. The President of the Republic, His Excellency Ismail Omar Guelleh, was received this morning by his Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping at the Grand Palace. The head of state was at the head of a large delegation, including the Minister of Foreign Affairs, International Cooperation, the Minister of Economy and Finance, as well as the President of the Ports Authority and the Director of the DMP Port, as well as other senior officials. China is willing to work with Djibouti to continually promote the bilateral strategic partnership, said Xi Jinping, emphasizing the joint constructions of Belt and Road. In a speech during a bilateral meeting between the two delegations, China will continue to support Djibouti's economic and social development, exchange development experience, and encourage competitive Chinese enterprises to invest and expand their business in Djibouti, he said. Mr. Guelleh explained that the Belt and Road initiative was unique, would promote international development cooperation and contribute to building an interconnected and better world. At the end of the meeting, the two leaders attend a signing ceremony of a bilateral cooperation document concerning inter alia the joint constructions of Belt and Road. The Foreign Minister Mahmoud Ali Yusuf signed his agreement with his Chinese counterpart. The Secretary General of the National Discipline Committee, Mr. Zhao Leji, offered lunch to the President and his delegation. Several high Chinese responsibilities have asked for these lunches. Zhou Yishu, Vice Minister of Relations International Party, Lian Welling, National Reform Committee, and Wang Binan, Vice Minister of Commerce, Chang Shedang, Foreign Ministers, the YIFA Director General, Directorate of Internal Cooperation Committee, the Discipline of the Chinese Communist Party. The Secretary of the Committee, in a short speech, welcomed the President and his delegation and welcomed the excellent friendship relations between the two countries. In the framework of the geothermal project of Yale, the Minister of Energy in charge of natural resources, Yunus Ali Gedi, accompanied by the Director General of EST, Mr. Jama Ali Guelleh, the Deputy Director of EDD, Mr. Abubakar Hassan Gessoud, geothermal project manager Mohammed Shari, the EDD accountant Mr. Fatah Umar, Energy Directors Mr. Guled Mohammed, and senior staff of the Ministry of Energy. They made on site of Fiale to realize a report on the progress of the first stage project. This strong delegation was welcomed by the Director of SAT, Mr. Jalaluddin Mohammed, and executives of the American company Geologica and the Tunisian company Stark. In fact, by applying the new deviated drilling technique, 3 wells were drilling to over 2,700 meters défi Anglais well, whose bottom temperatures exceed 320 degrees, has shown exceptional results since its geothermal potential is greater than expected. Also, truly the geothermal exploitation technology can be applied deep and binary since the geothermal fluid is two phases, hot and sparkling waters. For his part, the general managers of EDD, Mr. Jama Ali Gele, explained this result will move to the next stage of the project, which is to evaluate the exact potentials of electricity productions to generalize access to electricity for the population, he said. For his part, the Minister of Energy, Yunus Ali Gedi, explained that this project, which is fully in line with the joint efforts of the Ministry of Energy and the EDD, will help fight energy poverty, which is a major challenge for our government's sustainable development policy, a great day for our country and in particular the development of our energy, he said, namely geothermal energy. Facilitating trade exchanges was the theme on a workshop that opened early this morning at Sheraton Hotel. The two-day workshop focused on building trade capacity in Africa, the Caribbean and the Pacific period known as ICP. Thus, the implementation of an agreement on trade facilitation within the framework of a trade program will allow the representatives of the country's institutions to facilitate exchanges, simplify them, but also modernize and harmonize the export processes. And finally, the Minister of Commerce, Mr. Hassan Muhammad Arbahim, highlighted the importance of this workshop. He said, in essence, is that the government's commitment to the implementation of the FE reflects an informed economic policy. The Minister of National Education and Vocational Training, Mustafa Muhammad Mahamoud, sponsored the closing of ceremony of the three-round sessions of the Great School Contest, Saturday, April 27th. Many officials, including Member of Parliament, civil society figures, and parents of students, took part in this in the event alongside senior executive and officials of the MENFOP. Also, note the participation of representatives of UNICEF and UNHCR, Ms. Janabu Maunde, Abdullah Pari, as well as the General Director of NGO Al-Rahma, Abdul Samad Al-Qureshi. A public of young people from all schools across the country stormed the hall that was through the afternoon until early evening. These final examinations of the major school competition were the highlight of a long competition that took place through the school years and involved more than 100,000 students from nearly 150 schools and all levels and teaching order. The Minister of National Education and Vocational Training, Mustafa Muhammad Mahamoud, concluded by recalling that these competitions have a double objective: first, pedagogical and but also ethical, since they allow to establish a cultures of cohesion and mutual aid, help to build an early age the values of solidarity and fraternity so dear to our society. The Minister finally welcomed the mobilization of parents, students who shared and pride themselves with the feeling of humiliation and extreme satisfaction of their children during this great school competition. The Institute for Diplomatic Studies houses meetings of Djibouti Saudi Joint Commissioners. The conference rooms of the Institute of the Diplomatic Studies has hosted this morning the third sessions of the Joint Commission Djibouti Saudi Arabia, co-chaired by the Secretary General of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation, Mr. Mohammed Ali Hassan, and the head of the Saudi delegation, Mr. Yasser Suleiman Al Daoud, the ambassador of Djibouti to Saudi Arabia, Mr. Diaydin Said Makrama, and the representative of various ministries of the two countries, such as the finance, budget, trade, investment, transport, energy, telecommunication, and higher education, youth, sports, and others, participate in these third sessions of the Joint Commission. The joint Djibouti-Saudi commissions will discuss ways of strengthening and developing fraternal relations and joint cooperation between Djibouti and the kingdoms in various files. The head of the Saudi delegation, Mr. Yasser Suleiman Al Daoud, delivered a speech at the opening sessions in which he thanked the Djiboutian authorities for their hospitality in welcoming the level of bilateral relations between Djibouti and Riyadh. He took the opportunity to review the effort made in recent years to raise the level of mutual cooperation in various sectors and called on businesses from both countries to take advantage of direct meetings to advance cooperation projects of their common interest. For his part, the Secretary General of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation, Mohammed Ali Hassan, delivered a speech at the opening of the third meetings of the Djibouti-Saudi Joint Commission, in which he welcomed the Saudi delegations who testified to the quality evolutions of fraternal relation between Djibouti and Saudi Arabia. The third sessions of the Joint Committee reflect the strong interest of the two countries in promoting bilateral cooperation, creating an environment conducive to the development of private sector investment, and forging fruitful partnership between the two countries. The second Djibouti-Saudi Business Forum was held this morning in the meeting room of the Chamber of Commerce, chaired by Mr. Anglais, Vice President of the Chamber of Commerce, and the head of the Saudi delegation is Mr. Yasser Suleiman Al Daoud. Attend the opening sessions of the forum. Mr. Mohammed Ali Hassan, Secretary General of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation, Djibouti's ambassador to the Kingdoms of Saudi Arabia, Diaydin Makrama, as well as Chairman of the Djibouti Saudi Affairs Council, Mr. Riyad Al Huraybi, senior officials from the Djibouti Chamber of Commerce and member of the Saudi delegation also attend the forum's discussions focused on ways to strengthen economic trade relations between the two countries, including increasing the volumes of trade in coming years. During the meeting, participants continued video presentations on the strategic locations of Djibouti and the investment opportunity available in the country. The head of the Saudi delegation, Mr. Yasser Suleiman Al Daoud, delivered a speech at the opening session, expressed satisfaction at his participation in the second Djibouti-Saudi Business Forum, coinciding with this year with the launch of the joint Saudi-Djiboutian Committee. For his part, Mr. Anglais, Vice President of the Chamber of Commerce, reviewed in his speech the effort made in recent years to promote economic and trade relations between the two countries. On the other hand, the President of the Council of Djibouti Saudi Affairs, Mr. Riyad Al Huraybi, said that these meetings are aimed at strengthening economic relations between the two countries and taking advantage of the investment opportunity and competitive advances of both countries. The President of the Saudi Djibouti Affairs Council has denied in an interview to the national press the rumors transmitted by the foreign media regarding the changes of his representative, who is also the director of the Sahari groups in Djibouti, Mr. Ayman Lutfi Taha, and asserting that the news was unfounded and that Mr. Ayman Lutfi Taha is still at his post and remains unchangeable. Inculcate the children of the Republic to the values of the Republic under these slogans that the armed forces Djiboutians continue their journeys in the regions of interior. Indeed, this trip ended in Wea after Dakhil Ali Sabih Tujura and Aboha. This awareness raising caravans of the participations of the Chief of the General Staff of Armed Forces, General Zakaria Sheikh Ibrahim, the Chief of Defenses, General Tahir Ali Mohammed, the advisors of Siamga, General Ali Hassan Ali Kamil, and Captain Abdul Qadir Duale Iltiri, Assistant Officers of the Armored Regiment, Captain Ahmed Khaise Tahir, commanders of the Wea and responses squadrons, Atta Abdullahi Darar Okiye, the prefect of Artas region, the president of the regional council, Mr. Elmi Bouh, and the persons of civilians and military families invited for the occasion. The men and women of the Djiboutian armed forces has crisscrossed the 5 regions of the interiors to teach the school children of these regions the values of the Republic. Camp Wa'is Ajabs of Wea had the great privilege of closing these towers of the army, whose spearhead of these activities were no one others than the famous folkloric troops Harbi.
Nous sommes réunis aujourd'hui ici à Wea, au camp Wa'is Ajab, pour la clôture de la...
In his words of welcome, the assistant officers of the Armored Regiment, Captain Abdul Qadir Duale has especially stressed that the youth of the country is the living forces for this unity must be embodied and non-negotiable values of our republic, he said. The school children invited for the occasion answered questions about the values of the republic, questions prepared by the program officials. The pupils of the schools of Wea and Arta were invited to a guided visit to discover the different department of which is composed the army, more precisely the armored regiment. This ceremony ended with the presentations of the gift to the children who answered questions about the values of the republic.
Ay radio kan yo radio Palestina kaya ana Salman ku
The army closed these towers by celebrating with the military families. For this reason, the folkloric groups Harpi, famous for the song of sensitization, has interpreted songs in honor of the Republic, which is one and indivisible.
bulshooyadii halka hawsha xanuuntayda u damqanayn dareen baa igu lamaano dadguud baan ka hadlayaaye dalkiyo dadkan u dhasho sibaanila doonayaa dalkiyo dadkan u dhasho sibaanila doonayaa
midnimo ila doojayoon istinada dariiqu xaalo ayaan ila doonayaa
aqoonka durduurataan ayaan ila doonayaa waxaananu doonayaa rumaantoo laga durko wanaag lagu dogsada ayaananu doonayaa.
The prefect of Dakhil region, Mr. Mohammed Sheikh Hassan, received this week at the end the prefectures of Dakhil, a Japanese delegation is led by the Japanese ambassador to Djibouti, Mr. Koji Yonetani. The meeting was held in Dakhil prefectures and discussions were held on the Djibouti embassy's interventions in the unit region to improve the living conditions of the Oka peoples. The prefect of Dakhil, Mr. Mohammed Sheikho, thanked the Japanese ambassador for the quality of consistency of the interventions of Japanese cooperation in the region of Dakhil, including the first fight against us, and hope that this cooperation will intensify in the future in many areas. The ambassador thanked the prefect, Mr. Mohammed Sheikho, for his availability, and later went to the sub-prefectures of Yoboki in the regions of Dakhil. He was accompanied by the deputy prefect of Yoboki, Mr. Adu Muhammad, and the deputy prefect Yusuf Ali, the ambassador, and participated in the inaugurations of the hydraulic works in the area of Agna and near Yoboki, realizes with the financial support of the Embassy of Japan. As in the previous year, the schools of Arabic education, which is known as Azad, organized a ceremony of test on Thursday evenings at the end of the academic year 2018-2019 at the farewell final year. Namely, the event took place at the school headquarters in the presence of the director of the school, Mr. Faisal Ali Roble, president of the association is Azad, representative of the Ministry of National Education and Vocational Training, the director of the Arab schools, and dozens of teachers and students also attend this annual event. During this evening, students from the schools present poem songs as well as a short piece about the importance of science and learning. The teachers and laureates of the various competitions that took place through the 2018-2019 school years, receiving the prizes and awards from the hands of the school's leaders and guests. For the international scene, they were to be organized. The Spanish policy decided otherwise, having failed to gather a majority around these budgets for 2019. The head of the government, the socialist Pedro Sanchez, was forced last February to reopen his fragile mandate. As a result, the early parliamentary elections that are taking place on Sunday, April 28th in Spanish, could be decisive for the future of the country. This is the first time in 3.5 years that the Spaniard returns to the polls, and this time the vote could be historic since the extensive right parties parliament France detailed the stocks and elections announced as a turning point. Pedro Sanchez was not elected to become head of government. This is the mantras of these detractors from the ranks of the right for 10 months. This is it for the news. Thanks for watching us.